The Art of Sewing. Welcome to your Art of Sewing Getting Started DVD. This DVD has been specially designed to help you to get started creating your own clothes, from stylish tops to elegant trousers, plus stunning fashion accessories. This DVD has easy-to-follow instructions on all the information and techniques you will need to know to get the most from your collection. The steps are all shown in detailed close-up, and you can watch them as many times as you need to. By following this step-by-step guide, you will be able to take your first steps to creating your own clothes with confidence, from the basics to haute couture, making stunning, individual clothes designed especially for you. You will find detailed instructions for everything you want to make in each magazine. Plus, there's a Getting Started guide with issue 1 that has a printed version of some of these instructions. Getting started. A work surface at tabletop height, where you can cut out your fabric and also place your sewing machine, is important. You will also need a comfortable chair and a good light source. Make sure you set up your iron and ironing board close by, as pressing your fabric while you work will produce professional results. You will also need a few basic items: paper scissors, large dressmaking scissors, small embroidery scissors, a selection of coloured threads, a range of needles in different sizes, tape measure, dressmaker's pins, safety pins, dressmaker's pen, a needle threader, a seam ripper, a thread clipper. Your paper pattern. With every issue of The Art of Sewing, you will receive a multi-size paper pattern printed onto good quality paper, so it's easy for you to handle without the risk of crumpling or tearing it. A different coloured line is used to represent each size on the pattern, and a key tells you which line you should follow for your individual measurements. Your printed Getting Started booklet includes a size chart to help you choose which one will be best for you. Start by unfolding your pattern and spread it flat across your work surface. Then cut out the pieces, taking note of all the pattern markings. These will help you join the cut-out fabric pieces together accurately. On your T-top pattern, you will need to cut around the triangular notches. Cut out each pattern piece, following the correct coloured line for your size. Use a pair of sharp paper scissors and cut with smooth strokes along the straight lines, cutting carefully around curves, corners and notches with smaller strokes. You may find it easier to use your embroidery scissors for the notches. Preparing your fabric. You can buy wonderful fabric to make up your patterns from both local retailers and fabric suppliers on the internet. We will be helping you to find some of the most exciting places to buy from. The Art of Sewing will tell you what type of fabric you will need to make up your pattern, and exactly how much to buy. Once you have chosen and bought your fabric, remember to wash it on the appropriate cycle to prevent any shrinkage once you have made your garment. Press your fabric carefully and then fold it as shown in the cutting layout in the magazine before you start to pin on your pattern pieces. If using a fabric with a directional design, make sure the pieces are the correct way up. Fold the fabric right side out so that you can see how to position the pattern pieces to make the best use of the design. Pinning your pattern. Each garment will have its own cutting layout in your magazine. If one of your pattern pieces has a place to fold marking, like the front of the T-top pattern with issue 1, position this one first. Place it a short distance from the cut end of the fabric, and make sure that the place to fold edge is flush with the folded edge of the fabric. Pin your pattern piece in place, starting with this edge. Insert the pins parallel to the edge of the paper and space them at regular intervals. Because it is aligned to the woven edges of the fabric, the first piece of your pattern will naturally lie along the straight grain of the fabric. In essence, the grain refers to the directions of the thread from which all woven fabrics are made. Look out for the grain line arrows on your patterns. These need to lie along the grain parallel with the woven edges known as the selvages. Matching the grain arrow will stop your cut fabric pieces pulling out of shape when you start to stitch them together. Position the second piece of your pattern carefully, respecting the grain line. Pin one end of the grain line arrow to secure the piece. Measure the distance between the pin and selvage. Check the measurement at the other end of the arrow and adjust the pattern so that the two distances are the same. You can now pin on the pattern piece, as before. Cutting your fabric. Once the back and front of your pattern are pinned to your fabric, cut loosely around them with your dressmaking scissors to separate each piece. Start the precise cutting around the lower end of a pattern piece, sliding the blades alongside the edge of the paper and cutting with long, smooth strokes. Use one hand to keep the pattern and fabric flat. Move around your work surface when cutting, rather than trying to move the pattern and fabric. Use shorter cuts around curved edges. Snip around notches with your embroidery scissors. Cut a little way beyond corners before changing direction to keep them neat and crisp. Now remove your pins and open out the fabric. Keep an eye out. Some patterns have markings such as dots or darts that need to be transferred to the fabric before they are unpinned. Don't worry, the magazine will guide you through this step by step when you need it. Tacking. Now it's time to pin the pieces together. Lay the front out flat on your work surface the right way up and lay one of the back pieces on top, so that the right side of the fabric is facing downwards. Use the notches to help you match the two pieces exactly. Pin the seam lines together, inserting the pins at right angles. Use glass-headed pins. These show up well and are easy to pull free from the seam once it's been tacked. Thread a needle with a long length of thread, using a needle threader if you need to. It's easier to use a contrasting colour thread to your material, so that it'll be easier to remove the tacking thread later. Knot one end of the thread. Tacking stitches are used to join one piece of fabric to another temporarily, until they're ready to be sewn by hand or machine. Stitch just inside the seam line, so that the machine stitches won't trap the tacking thread. Make evenly spaced stitches about 1 centimetre long. Finish off the tacking with a double stitch. Once you've tacked all the seams, remove the pins. Your sewing machine. Although you will need to use hand stitches for some dressmaking, most of your work will be done on a sewing machine. All you need is a straightforward mid-range sewing machine with a few different stitches and an adjustable speed control. In principle, all sewing machines work in the same way. Machine stitches are formed by interlocking 2 threads, one from the cotton reel on the top of the machine and one from a small bobbin inside the lower part. Make sure you read the instruction manual for your machine before you start, as all machines are slightly different. First, you must fill the bobbin with thread. Place the bobbin on the spindle and disengage the needle. Run the thread from the cotton reel around the thread guide and wrap the end around the bobbin until it's secure. Press the foot pedal to turn the bobbin to take up the thread. Remove the filled bobbin and place it in the bobbin case, and guide the thread through the tensioning spring. Place the bobbin case inside the machine as shown in your manual. Now you have to thread the machine with the top thread. Your machine may even have numbers to help guide you as you take the thread around the various tensioning guides and through the take-up lever. Finally, bring it down towards the needle and thread it through the eye from front to back. Depending on your model, the final step is to bring up the bobbin thread. Set your machine to a standard length straight stitch. Practice sewing a few lines on some spare fabric to check the thread tension and make sure you're completely comfortable with your machine. You'll find a series of parallel lines marked on the bed of the machine. Always keep the right edge of fabric along one of these lines to maintain a regular seam allowance. Before you start stitching your garment, make sure you feel that you can control the speed with the foot pedal and the flow of the fabric as it passes under the needle. Now you're ready to sew your garment 1 seam at a time. Start by working a few reverse stitches at the beginning of each seam to secure the threads. Repeat the process when you reach the end of each seam, so that they will not come undone. Once you've finished the seam, pull the fabric away from the machine and clip the thread with your embroidery scissors. Remove the tacking thread by drawing it out or snipping. Pressing your seams. You will need to press every seam that you make as you work, before you move on to stitching the next stage of your garment. This is the best way to give the finished item a crisp, professional look. Place the stitched fabric on the ironing board, wrong side towards you. In most cases, you should press along the stitching on one side, then the other. Then open out the seam allowance and carefully press it flat. As the art of sewing builds, you will learn how to put these basic skills into practice to make individual garments. We hope you enjoy the Art of Sewing collection.